Welcome to ZamBition, the channel on which we engage in dialogue with leaders from across sectors and generations. Greetings and welcome to ZamBition. My name is Martin Kalungubanda, your host on this channel. This week, our guest is a young leader whose work ethic, the capacity to sense what life calls her to be and to do, deeply amazes me. Her name is Rachael Kalaba. Rachael is currently a PhD student of comparative education and international development at the University of Toronto in Canada. Rachael holds a master's degree in development practice, another master's degree in management, and a Bachelor of Arts degree in development and arts. She also has a postgraduate diploma in responsible leadership management from the Swedish Institute of Management. Before going to Canada, Rachael worked for the Catholic Diocese of Ndola as an assistant youth coordinator, but she also rose to the position of country manager for Kamara Education, Zambia. Rachael deeply believes in the power of education. This is why she's currently working on a book chapter for school leaders on the continent of Africa. Rachael, welcome to ZamBition.
Thank you so much, Martin. I'm so excited to be here.
Wonderful. What image or object best describes who you are?
The image actually that I picked is the ego because it depicts my journey from birth to where I am right now, and the way the ego carries itself in terms of, storms, the wind, how it deals with, different attacks, but it still rises up. And I think for me, that is what resonates well with me, because the ego is actually a definition of my journey. Like, I'll still go down, but I still get to fly.
Let us into the life of the ego so far. What has been your personal journey? And give us a little bit of background about your folks and indeed key moments leading to someone who is doing her PhD in one of the prestigious universities in the world.
My story is filled with joy, pain, laughter, hilariousness, and all that. I'm born from my late father was Akim Rachael Kalaba from Wapura, and my mom, Cecilia Kasamwa. My mom was anchored in the Catholic Church. My father was, very educated, who was a staunch believer in education. And my story, I think, started in my teens. I think I would say the age of 13, when my father lost everything and we had to relocate to the compounds. And that is where I started, my formation stage was in Lubuto, in Ndola, where I really started looking at, survival, survival in terms of access to school, survival in terms of what to eat, and survival in terms of everyday life. And it's through that journey that I started doing community activism, as well as being, a very serious church goer, because sometimes, we do not understand the role of the church and the community, especially for communities which are for people who are vulnerable. And for me, these were the two anchors that really supported me in my journey. And it's from there that I started realizing my bigger why was to really be there for service, be there, enjoy life, not like in a bad way, but if I loved singing, I joined the choir group. If I wanted to do traveling, I was part of a youth group that were doing a lot of camping. So my formation stages in the church really helped me to start my journey.
So, and sorry to hear about the passing on of your dad. You were a middle-class family.
Yes.
Before your father lost his job.
Yes.
And then upon him losing his job, you moved in terms of social status to residential areas that you are referring to as the compound.
Yes, so our social status drastically changed when my father lost his job. And it meant a lot of things for us. You are a young girl going to a compound. When you talk about a compound, the safe net, the social security safe net is literally taken away from you. You no longer have a yard fence. Your house is open. You no longer have your own bedroom. You have to have several people having that. You no longer have access to 3 meals. You only have a meal. And we had to find a way to make a source of income. And we started making samosas, and we started making, and would go and sell in the market. Martin would sell samosas from our yard and in the market. Would wake up as early as 5 a.m. And we have different responsibilities because my family is full of men. We're only 2 girls. We all had a role to play in the family. Who was going to create the dough? Who was going to do the frying? Who was going to do the selling? So the selling was mostly to my younger sister. And then for me, I was more in wrapping of the samosas and preparing and counting them and making the budget. Because when we would sell, that is when we're going to have a meal, a budget for the meal. How to buy the capamela, if people who stay in the wood would know, how to buy cooking oil, and we had the vegetables. So, and then to buy how to recapitalize the same business. I was young and I still started having to learn the hard work, having to be a brother's keeper, having to be accountable, and making sure that the whole family had to be accountable for each other. And not only that, I still needed to do good at school. I needed to pass well. And then I also needed to do my service at church because choir, you can't be absent. We had to do. So all this became part of my routine, in my teenage years. And that was actually some of the formations that I really appreciate up to date.
So you kept touch with your faith by being a church member. Could you say more about your life as a church goer?
My life as a church goer is very interesting. It's from there that I learned a lot that I couldn't have learned in the school spaces. I was given an awareness of values, which, when you do the behavior change program, you are given certain values that are so rich that I hope it's being carried out to now, talking about the influence of media, talking about, the influence of who your friends are, talking about the need to pray, our prayers as Catholic, it talks about your, aspect of our relationship with nature, with family, the honor, the respect of your mother and father. We have a prayer in the Catholic Church, honor your mother and father, thus you live long, honor, the church, but not the building, but the church being you, because you are made in the image of God, and that, God will bless the works of your hands. I think from there, I started having that zeal to be like, so I can do this, the motivation I couldn't get in a classroom, the belief of who I am as a person and what I can achieve was literally given to me by this, type of, values and activities that made me do things that were practically impossible because it was like faith.
Yeah. And how does that young girl, from what you have said to be a shanty compound, transition from those humble beginnings to being in some of the best places of learning in Sweden, in Ireland, and now in Canada? How does that happen?
Sometimes I ask myself the same question, and I could only say it's only God. But Martin, it's only God, because it's actually, I feel like it's a miracle. I moved, working in the compounds. I just didn't just live in the compounds. I also transitioned to work for the Catholic Church. They have the youth department. I was privileged to get, a position like work as, as a youth assistant, as an officer, field officer. From there, by Martin, I was exposed to belief that I can do it. Most times I will be telling you, I want to apply to this. I applied. The first journey I did was I found myself in Norway doing an exchange program. Then I found myself in Cambridge on a scholarship from Ireland doing my degree.
In Ireland, yeah.
In Ireland. I came, and then my life transitioned from a field officer, from a compound officer. When I was doing my degree in Ireland, I got in touch with this Camara Education. We were looking for somebody with innovative ideas. And I threw myself out there. And they were like, okay, when you go to Zambia, we want you to do this project. So I started working with them. And there I was, oh, you're going to be the country manager. I was like, what does that mean? I was scared. In that process of being scared, I go back, I was like, I'm going to go and do my master's. I left. And people, how do you leave this? You've just started. I went back to Ireland, Martin, to get my second master's, because I believed that education was going to make me do good, because I wasn't just going to be comfortable with status. So my journey just rode and accelerated, that I became fearful of what he was doing, but I was also faith, I had the faith that, God will make a way, because all this was happening of me doing something and praying about it, and God saying, yes, you're going to do it. And then when I came back, I worked for another organization. And then, there was just this thing that came to me. I was like, there's no way I am going to provide, quality education. I went to Mahatma Gandhi. He says, be the change you want to see in the world.
Allow me to ask this, because you seem to have found a way of combining your faith or prayer and actions. And it isn't just a question of tithing so that the Lord may bless you. It was a question of really keeping your values, your faith, and at the same time, throwing yourself out there into the field, doing the work. Where did you learn this from?
Honestly, my late father, he's one person who really said, if you want anything, it has to be in your name. And then for me, I saw, as I interacted, that things were not going to be given to me. Like, here, Rachel, take. So every time I started thinking was like, I can do better. My mind just kept me, you can do better, Rachel, because God says we are all made by the image of God. Work hard. So I believed in, like, I will work hard, I will apply for it. And if I don't know, I will ask, I will learn, I will relearn, because I cannot teach what I don't know. I cannot tell you, when this talk of innovation, I cannot tell you to do something when I have not even done the journey. And it's from there that I also decided, like, some of the institutions I wasn't happy. I was like, maybe I should let me find, like I founded the ZamWILL project, where it was like, where is the platform? Because I saw that the church wasn't becoming a platform for most people to learn the skills I had, to learn the values, the best, the mentorship, the opportunity. So I was like, we're going to set up ZamWILL as a way to bring mentorship.
What is ZamWILL? Say more about ZamWILL. What is ZamWILL?
ZamWILL is Zambia Women Institute of Leadership and Learning, Martin. It's a lived experience and journey for how can women, young ladies, access opportunities of leadership. For me, I was mentored by the church. But for most girls, our time, most of them, they do not, go to the same church. We are now like Christian. We have different things. So for me, being Catholic, I was given this platform. But for those that don't go to the Catholic Church, how do we create a platform for girls to really be mentored in good values? Because there's a certain thing that we are missing. You cannot just be educated and not have a base and value. You cannot also not have values without an education. And you cannot just have an education and sit and not do any action around it. You have to be a well-rounded human. And to be a well-rounded human, you cannot tell others to be well-rounded human when you yourself are still struggling. So I always use myself as a learning journey and an example to say, I've had nothing. It's been a crazy road. If people from Lubuto, I feel like even now in this program, that's when people know that I'm actually doing a PhD, because it's a hidden secret. Because I decided to be like, how can I do better? How can I, be of service in the most quality way and in a way that allows my authentic self? Because I started seeing being lost working for institutional organizations, because I had to follow their vision, their mission. Yes, it is good, but at the end of the day, my lived experience and what I envision the Zambia we want or the Africa we want means that I have to be in a certain space that allows my authentic self to be out there. And that means me aspiring for higher education and doing it in a way that every time, when I leave this space, I want every Zambian child, girl child, from the village to the convoy, to the town, to say it is possible to reach the highest level of education, coming with nothing.
Absolutely. The importance of education, as you are stressing. And yet, Rachel, I'm deeply worried that our education seems not to be fit for purpose. I have the privilege, and I count myself fortunate, to be a visiting fellow in two of the world's leading universities at Oxford and MIT. These institutions we are looking up to, they are questioning the relevance of the current education they are offering. And when I look back at home, how relevant is our education when we are simply producing people who can regurgitate, memorize, and bring back through an exam what they were taught? And if you know information about the geography of X and Y place, we don't need that, because all I need to do is to go online and I'll get the answers. Our education is not preparing people for the future, so that they are capable of solving the problems they face and their society faces. How do we improve? How do we reform our education system, Rachel?
Martin, I become so emotional when you talk of education, because being here has given, when the Bemba saying, when you don't travel, you might think, if I tried somebody that's the usage is like, I'm very well educated. But if we don't do an urgent overhaul of our education system, we are going to be in a total mess. Our population is filled with young people. We need to think of how we recenter education, because even UNESCO is talking about the curriculum recentering. That's just not about passing exams. It's very interesting when you see when people are announcing grade 7 results are out, grade 9 results are out, grade 12 results are out. Then what? What type of skills are these people who are going to drop out of the system have to contribute to Zambian, in education? When you look from abroad, people talk about, I dropped, they're always saying the success story that I dropped out from school and I became an innovator, I became a millionaire. What they are not telling our people is the curriculum that was exposed to them to be able to think outside the box, to be innovative, that even if they dropped out of grade 9, they can still go online, they can still make an app. Our technology, we need to start thinking of recentering values, technology, data, STEM, for us to really compete favorably. And that requires, government efforts. It requires boosting, budgets. It requires, as you mentioned, tapping into the creme de la creme of our country. For us to tap it, it has to be good service of conditions. Who was going to want to be a teacher if you're going to be paid 2,500 kwacha, compared to if I become a cadre, I'll be a millionaire. We need to redefine and bring that education is the core and foundation. Our forefathers managed to work and compete favorably to win our country because they were educated. Father Kaunda was a teacher. All the African leaders were educated, most of them in this land. For them to fight, they had to use tactics that would work. 21st century, we need now to start training our people to be competitive favorably, technological-wise. It's just not being on Facebook, tweeting, TikTok. How can people are making money out of it because they have been trained how to. As we are wasting time as young people on it, making the numbers as followers. And I feel like, how can we make that innovation? Innovation is really important, Martin. Innovation can only be in the space of education. How can we do that? How can we bring about skill set of problem solving, communication skills? You and I will agree that if you call a grade 12 for interviews, they have not even been taught all these communication skills, problem solving skills. How do you now compete favorably? What type of skills? And they say we have career guidance.
And you pinpointed one area that needs attention, that if we do not create good enough conditions for educationists to be attracted to the profession of teaching or lecturing, we are going to continue attracting people who have only the choice of teaching as their last choice. Because the best people don't go, most best people don't go into the teaching profession. They go into engineering, medicine, law. And our colleges attract probably those who were least qualified for tertiary education. And I say this with humility because there are many good teachers, highly talented, but we also have a lot of information that teaching profession is attracting not the best of graduates, not the best of those who are leaving colleges. Let me come to this question, Rachel. What is your ambition, your highest aspiration for our country?
Our highest aspiration as a country is equitable access to education for all. Respect for, no, I don't even know what word to use. As we said, there's the teaching fraternity, the education sector is no longer relevant in our society. And they are the core of the heartbeat of a nation. Like every nation's success is defined in terms of how we invest in our future. And our future can only be well supported if they have access to quality education, not just education, but Martin, as you mentioned. So I look forward to a Zambia where if I'm in a rural area as a girl child, I have equal access to technology, to innovation, to access to good teachers, access to good infrastructure, because we're talking about teachers and we're forgetting the infrastructure as well. No teacher wants to be in a place where there's no proper infrastructure. And there's no country that can develop without investing in infrastructure, be it in the rural areas, be it in the peri-urban areas. And I think for me, it's a true Zambia is to end poverty is, of course, that equal access for all, that when we wake up, I'm proud to be Zambian. I don't need to move 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers to access a good school, but I can be within vicinity, get the best of my school and contribute favorably to my country. And I feel for me, that is the ambition I have for Zambia.
Making quality education accessible to all, whether they are based in the urban or rural areas. Thank you, Rachel. And my final question is,
yes,
what is the best piece of advice you have ever been given?
The best piece of advice I was ever given is that it's even God, but I know anything that's in your name will forever be in your name. And it will come to pass, having faith in all that you do, putting God at the center of your work, at the center of everything that you do. Sometimes, as you say, you cannot see things, but they do come to pass because you have faith. And for me, that is what has kept me going, is having faith in God. Because having faith in God means you have faith in mankind, that, good is possible.
And I know that your sense of having faith is coupled with actions as well. Rachael,
Yes.
Thank you very much for sharing with us your personal journey. Thank you for continuing to fly the Zambian flag in Toronto. We wish you the very best, and thank you for being on Zambition.
Thank you so much, Martin. It was a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Having listened to the dialogue and followed my conversation with our guest, I now invite you to look at the drawing that emerged out of that dialogue. Take time to see the contours, the colors, the images that are reflected on the painting, on the drawing. And pay attention to what the drawing evokes in you. What are the feelings? What are the thoughts that are ignited by you looking at the painting? What thoughts does the painting generate in you with regard to your own leadership? What thoughts, feelings, and images does this painting evoke in you with regard to the future of our country? Kindly share your reflections on this channel so that we can continue the dialogue on the future of the country we all love, on the future of our nation. Thank you.